Well, in a recent Quinnipiac poll, it's deduced that Republicans are more willing to fight for freedom than their Democratic counterparts. Now, among Democrats, 52% they would flee the country in a comparable conflict to what we're seeing in Ukraine, compared to only 25% of Republicans would actually flee. And we now know that the left has waged the war on men, labeling any display of testosterone as toxic masculinity. But let's be honest, folks. I've been to war, and when the bullets start flying, nobody hides behind a feminist. Over 70% of children are raised by single mother households right now, with very minimal male influence. Over 76% of elementary schools are taught by female teachers. An extremely high percent of child care providers are women as well. One could argue that we don't have a toxic masculinity problem. We have a lack of masculinity problem. So I want to bring in our panel for this. We have Ellis Henican. He's a New York Times best-selling author and a columnist for Dow Jones Market Watch, as well as Kay Smythe. She writes for the Daily Caller. So Ellis, I will pose the question to you. What is with the left's war on masculinity?
Are you serious about this?
Yes.
There is no war on masculinity. There is men in the world, women in the world. We still have lots of them. Thank goodness they're all involved in all aspects of lives. I think maybe you can explain the problem better than so far, but I don't really see much of a problem here.
Okay.
So the problem here is, Ellis, that if Russia or any other nation decides to invade this country, half of your people are just going to run away. You're just going to run away like they did in, I don't know, like Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And that leaves the rest of the country up to defend you and to save you, even though you're going to be cowering in the shadows saying, it's okay, you could come and take our freedom. That's kind of the concern here. We're in the midst of what could potentially be World War III, and you guys don't want to do anything about it.
So, Ellis,
okay, so Kate, why don't we let's talk about some factors. So we have all volunteer army in America, right? Something like 2% of Americans have anything to do with it at all, right? The vast majority of Republicans and Democrats have absolutely nothing to do with fighting military. In fact, our military today, and this is really good news, is tremendously diverse. Democrats, Republicans, white, black, Hispanic, everything you want in our military. It's one of our greatest strengths. And for you guys to try and insult and tar some huge percentage of our fighting forces with this cartoon notion of ideological politics, frankly, is, I think, a little insulting to the people who are out there doing the work, Carl.
Well, hold on a sec. I didn't make the statement that 52% of Democrats would run away from a fight. There was a legitimate poll conducted. It was in the Wall Street Journal, of all places, reported on it. And
well, one thing we know, Carl, is that 98% of Americans, 98%, Kay, have nothing to do, have already run away from a fight. They're perfectly happy. And all three of us right now are part of that group, by the way, because we're not actively involved in this, are willing to let others do our fighting for us. So to try to turn this into some kind of partisan gotcha is it's cartoon politics.
So, Ellis, I spent the better part of 9 years in and out of Iraq as a Navy SEAL, so I consider myself as doing my part. So, Kay, to that point, the vast majority of the military is conservative. They may not have all like Donald Trump, but they're not all rushing to Joe Biden's defense right now.
No, and I think, Ellis, maybe you misconstrued the point. We're not talking about 50% of the military saying that they wouldn't stand up and fight. We're talking about guerrilla warfare here, which is the one thing that I think America isn't actually really that much at risk of facing, because we still have the Second Amendment. But I think the concern maybe is more that if it did come to that, in the absolute worst case scenario, if we're looking at guerrilla warfare here in the United States, like a real ground movement, an invasion from any one of our major threats, 50% of this country would lay down and let it happen. That's the concern here. And to be honest with you, as an immigrant in this country, that concerns me too. Like, I don't want to have to wake up one day and fight, but I'm more than willing to do it because I think that that's what's right for this country.
Somehow I believe that, Kay. But, I want to get to this. So, Ellis, I take one side of what you're saying. However, on the other side, there's been a significant number of headlines. They called Donald Trump toxic, too masculine. They labeled a bunch of his policies, chest thumping and testosterone born and bred. Do you think that this was? I mean, here's one right now from the Daily Beast. Donald Trump is the personification of toxic masculinity. The Daily Beast is no friend to Republicans, and they're certainly more of a Democratic piece. What do you make of the fact that they are literally trying to strip that out of society as something that's bad?
So I think our friend John Fund made a good point in the previous segment, which is that some of that stuff does turn off a lot of Americans, particularly women, suburban women, educated people, don't buy into, Carl, what is, I think, kind of a 1950s notion of what masculinity is, right? It's the loudmouth, obnoxious jerk, man, the obnoxious guy. The reality is that in most men's lives, and Carl, I think this applies to me and you, we're much more diverse and complex than that. We do have a macho side, but we also have a compassionate side and a decent side and a side that wants to care for others and look out for things. And Kay, I'm sure you're attracted to guys who are not just those loudmouth, obnoxious jerks. So let's don't get ourselves stuck in some kind of 1950s notion of what maleness is.
Yeah, well, Kay, I'd love to let you respond to this, but I'm being told we are out of time. Thank you very much. Spirited debate. I just want to let you folks know that I take my coffee black and I like my meat very, very rare. I will tear my shirt off and wave a flag, and I love my guns.
Tough guy, yeah.
America. All right, Kay, Ellis, thank you very much, as always.